name thing is always interesting to me. My name is James, is the full name, and that comes from Jacob, which means like supplanter, like somebody that tries to take over after Jacob in the Bible grabbing his brother's heel. So our names are not always, maybe they're not what we want them to be, but they are you know, they are what they are. So you know, make your own meanings for your names. Wanted to tell you a little bit about the gospel lesson this morning. Talk a little bit about it with you. I didn't think that I was going to be preaching this Sunday, so my research isn't as good as what I would like it to be, what it would make me comfortable. But I was reading over the gospel lesson about Jesus' birth, and I'm reading about the scandalous timing involved. How Mary was found to be with child before being married to Joseph. I was reminded of my grandmother Danbury, my mom's mom. A few years ago, we were at family Christmas, and we were talking about the Christmas story. And my family talks a lot about the Bible. I'm not sure if that led to how I got involved with what I do, but it's a constant conversation. And so we're talking about the community gossip around Mary and Joseph, right? And the pregnancy and its timing. And my grandmother chuckled and said, "Yep, somebody's always counting." And she narrowed her gaze across the table at my cousin Joey and his wife Kristen and their new daughter. And she said, "I know we were counting the months with you." And my cousin looked kind of horrified. And he said, "Grandma, we've been married 3 years." And she laughed and she said, "You're probably all right." But the exchange reminded us of the difficult questions that the Holy Family must have gotten that first Christmas and every year after. And this is a topic that has been covered by historians, theologians, scientists. The virgin conception has caused debate. And so I wanted to look into this a little bit, because some people say, "Well, I just can't believe it." And other people say, "Well, you have to believe it." So I read over some of the common theories and the controversies. First and foremost, what about the passage that Matthew quotes from Isaiah? All right? And that's back to our first lesson from today. People wonder, is Isaiah talking about Mary? They look at it and they say, well, the language and the grammar that is used says that Isaiah the prophet is talking to a king back in the 6th century and pointing to a woman and saying that woman will have a kid soon. All right? Did the writer of Matthew, there's also a theory that the writer of Matthew plagiarized the story from a virgin conception from Greek mythology. All right? Borrowed it. Wanted to boost up Jesus' pedigree. There's also an argument that the early church was battling against this guy named Zealous, and he was saying that Jesus was illegitimate and trying to devalue who he was. So Jesus made up this story about himself. After lots of study of their different points, I've come to a conclusion. I'm not sure it really matters to me. You might be wondering how I can say that as a pastor. And yet, I'm not convinced that the specific details of Jesus' birth, the mechanics of his conception, is really what this gospel lesson is about. If you think about it, we only hear about Jesus' miraculous birth in how many of the Gospels? 2. How'd you guys guess that? That was tiny. And yet our salvation is just as real in Mark and John without angels, without the story of Mother Mary and Joseph. And so in the end, I I worry, I wonder if we're missing the most important part of our story this morning. Because it's too easy to get hung up on, well, could a miracle like this happen? Did angels really come down? And what about the prophecy? Perhaps the important part is not the how of Jesus' birth, but I wonder if the crucial part is the who. Stay with me. So who does our gospel lesson this morning say that Jesus is? You can get out, you're allowed to cheat, you're allowed to get it out. What names or titles is Jesus given? Messiah. Very first off the bat, Messiah. The Christ. What else? Prince of Peace. What else? Emmanuel. God with us. Anything else that you see in our text? What names is he given? Or implied? Whose son is it? God's son. What's his given name? Jesus, or Yeshua, Savior. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill. And for me, this is something to get excited about. This is good news, powerful news, world-changing and life-changing. God with us. Jesus is not like God, similar to, or representing God. Jesus is God, the almighty creator of the universe, the divine spark that started all life on earth. This is what happened 2,000 years ago. God is no longer up there and us down here. God has come down to join God's self to us in the pain, joy, love, and loss that is our world. And I wonder if this is what gets Mary through being found pregnant as an unwed teenager. God's presence with her. And I wonder if this is what gets Joseph through the discovery that his wife-to-be is already pregnant with a son that is not his own. God's presence with him. Think about it. Even in Luke and Matthew's Gospels, where we hear this amazing Christmas story, it's never mentioned again. Or referred to again in the entire Bible. Not because it isn't true, but rather because the miracle is not the point. God's presence is. God's presence with Mary and Joseph doesn't cease with Jesus' birth. God continues to be with the Holy Family. When the joy of the wise men come and they visit, through the terror of having to flee from Herod, trying to kill all the kids in Bethlehem. And God's presence is infused through all the love and all the worry that Jesus' parents pour out on him. Anybody know anything about pouring out love and worry on their kids? But I haven't even gotten to the best news yet. God is not done. What is Jesus called in verse 23 again? What was that? Emmanuel. God with us. Note that it doesn't say God was once with us. It doesn't say a long time ago God was with us. And it doesn't say someday God will be with us. It says God is with us today, now, here. The good news for us today is that we know that not even death can separate God's presence from the world that God so dearly loves. On the third day, Jesus rose from the grave, and his last words to his disciples and to us were, anybody know? Remember, I am with you to the very end of the age. Jesus doesn't tell us how that's going to happen, but Jesus surely says who. The church, you and me, through our baptisms, in the bread and wine, God is with us. In the birth of a child, in the death of a loved one, God is with us. In service to those in need, and those times when we're being served and cared for. God is with us. So I invite you this Advent season, this Christmas season, your life, not to get hung up on how, but to dwell in the joy of who. I want to end with a story. During our time in Yakima, Washington, it was where we lived before we got here, Erica worked at the local Humane Society. And due to the economic structure of the area and some cultural reasons, this shelter saw every year come through its door 7,000 animals. 7,000 unwanted, lost, or neglected pets. Some they could save, and some they couldn't. And this weighed heavily on Erica and the rest of the staff at the shelter. And they knew what they needed to do, right? They knew that the only way to change this was to open a spay and neuter clinic, so that people could get their animals fixed and not, and end the cycle. And this contest came up because, again, the economics, they didn't have the money to do this. I mean, they knew what they needed to do, they didn't have the money. This contest comes up. And they're going to win $100,000. This is, and to get into the thing was an accomplishment. And they got in. And holy cow, they're in first place. And they're in first place. And they're in second place, and back to first. All up until the last couple hours. They came in second. No $100,000. No spare neuter. This Saturday, 3 years since the Humane Society lost that challenge. 3 years since we left Yakima, the first low-cost spay and neuter clinic opened in Yakima. 35 spay and neuters a day, 8,000 in a year. I don't always know how miracles happen, but I do know who. In big ways and in small, God is with us. Where have you seen Emmanuel this week in our world? I got a thank you note in the church mail. Nothing that I did. Somebody, one of you all, sent hundreds of Christmas cards to people in local nursing homes because they were worried that those people wouldn't hear love and hope given to them this year. And they signed your guys' names to it. A member of our church got to hand the staff member at the city mission a check for $3,000 so they could continue their care for the most vulnerable and the most overlooked in our community. You ring bells yesterday for the Salvation Army, which runs the only soup kitchen in Uniontown. Your gifts do these things. Again, I can't tell you how these things happen, but I can tell you who. Jesus the Christ, Emmanuel, God with us, yesterday, today, and always. Amen.